Hey everybody, welcome back to Critcraft. Today's project is a partially subterranean treehouse with all the accoutrements you'd expect, and maybe a few others you wouldn't. Crafting fun is on the way, so pack up your hobby tools and your imagination and follow me. When I was about 6 years old, my dad brought home the very first computer game I ever played. It was King's Quest by Sierra. This game meant a lot to me, as did the later games in the franchise released throughout the 80s and 90s. The King's Quest series, as well as others in the Sierra family, kick-started my imagination and began a lifelong love of adventure and all things fantasy. Now all of these games have inspired craft projects, and the first one I'd like to share with you is from this one, King's Quest II, Romancing the Throne. Stay tuned if you'd like to see how I made this diorama, but be warned, you may just get hooked on the adventures of King Graham of Daventry. There's an early scene in King's Quest II that always fascinated me. It's when King Graham ventures into the underground home of a thieving dwarf that stole his treasure. While you're here, you do some thieving of your own, taking the chicken soup in the fireplace and recovering your stolen item. To recreate this cozy subterranean dwelling, I started by sketching out some general dimensions. It took time over the course of the project to develop the final shape and size of the diorama, and these early sketches helped me to begin that process by turning concept images into visual ones. Once the dimensions were on paper, I began building the terrain by cutting XPS foam into 12x6 panels and then stacking them with superglue. The next time I began a build this way, I think I'll use white glue or a special foam adhesive instead of superglue, because dried superglue does not like to be cut with knives or hot wires. For me, it made the shaping process much more challenging than it had to be. With the initial terraforming done, I switched over to my handheld excavating tools for some serious earth refinement. I first transferred my sketches onto the foam with a Sharpie, most of which were destroyed when the hot wires came out, but without those sketches, I sometimes forget my plans and kind of go where the winds take me. And in my experience, the winds can be wild. So I usually work better with boundaries or visual reminders of my planning. I began the dirt destruction with a fine hot wire and then switched to a thicker one for the deeper carving. I had my windows open, had lots of ventilation, and also a soldering fan nearby to help get rid of those harmful fumes. When I was happy with the excavating, I began work on the dwarf's fireplace. I cut foam strips into stone-like shapes and textured them by shaking them in a container with real rocks. I then glued them in place with PVA glue in a cute clip montage that Caleb of Boylite Hobby Time once taught me. With that done, I pulled out some Sculpt-a-Mold and prepared to get messy. The cave walls needed realistic texturing, and as you may know from previous videos, Sculpt-a-Mold makes me happy, so I eagerly whipped up some of that off-white goop and went to town. Next, I began construction of the tree itself. I first copied the trunk shape onto tracing paper and formed the tree with pieces of toilet paper tubes. I wanted to make a space for the door that had an organic and carved out look and big roots that sort of wrapped around the porch area. I then added some thick branches with the same paper before switching to plastic tree armatures for the finer branches. I glued a bunch of these in place, also with super glue, and then cleaned up my hobby bench before moving on to the bark. The modeling paste that I used for the bark texture didn't stick well to dried superglue, so I prepped the surface first with Mod Podge. To shorten the dry time, I baked the tree in my oven, and I did not get distracted and leave it there too long, slightly melting the branches into pathetically shrunken sad branches. Just kidding, I did, but I had a fix in mind that I'll show you after I paint the tree and start adding foliage. To make my bark frosting, I scooped modeling paste into a cup before adding lots and lots of baking soda. There you go. A little more. A little more. A little more. Done. I made a thick, gritty frosting that I applied with my fingers over the entire surface. I filled up all those nooks and crannies and blended the finer branches into the trunk. And then after drying, cleaned things up with an X-Acto knife. And next, with my tree finished, I whipped out my trusty paint booth and set up shop. I began painting first with a mahogany, a dark mahogany, over everything, and then I layered on a lighter brown, mostly from above. I then added additional layers by dry brushing lighter and lighter colors up to an off-white, before finishing with a muted green in places to imply moss. As I mentioned before, I had a fix in mind for my oven mishap. I remembered that I had some completed trees left over from an older project, so I pivoted a little bit on my first plan and added these ones instead. I then fixed up the sad, melted branches with some dry brushing for a dried out, withered look. I think it actually improved the tree's finished look, and I was happy that I'd recovered from my goof and made better of it. I might even call it a happy accident. Would you agree, Mr. Ross?
We don't make mistakes. We have happy accidents.
With the outside of the tree now finished, I returned to terraforming for just a sec. After marking some cut lines, I brought out a utility knife and roughly carved away chunks of earth. I also used a clay shaping tool for more refined cuts. Then, after cleaning up my work area, I switched to a creme brulee torch to deepen some areas and smooth out the surface. Remember to use a good respirator and have lots of ventilation whenever you're melting foam. With the terraforming now complete, it was high time for rock and stone. I had poured some molded rocks the day before, and also a thin sheet of plaster that I scored lines into. Once the sheet was dry, I broke it up into little flagstones and stacked them into a sort of carved stairway up to the dwarf's house. With the stairs done, I picked out a few rocks and glued them to the diorama before moving on to the inside of the dwarf's tree. Due to the tight locations of the diorama's lighting features, I needed to assemble them and run their wiring before anything else. I first crafted a torch to light the inside of the tree. After drilling into a piece of wood dowel, I scraped a channel into the backside and glued a flickering LED into place. This is a nano LED with a chip on board, or a cob light some people call it. Next, I added a flame effect with a drop of UV resin and then insulated my connections with heat shrink before tucking the wires away for safekeeping. I then made a log fire off camera and added it to the dwarf's fireplace. To run the wires, I first used a straight hot wire to gouge holes under the tree and fireplace. I then melted channels into the foam that would connect these holes to a battery housing on the right side of the diorama, which I carved out with my X-Acto and a pair of needle nose pliers. I wanted the sides of the diorama to establish the visual boundaries of the piece in as clean a way as possible. To accomplish this as best I could, I drew the outlines of the front and back of the diorama onto tracing paper, and then used my X-Acto to cut through the paper into a sheet of styrene. With the cutting done, I popped out those shapes, roughed up one side with sandpaper, and then glued them in place with white glue. Then the last thing to do before painting the sides was to cover the ground with a homemade texture paste. After cleaning up all the edges, I pulled out my painting booth one last time and made everything black and white. Color painting began with a light brown base coat applied with a hand brush to the ground up top and the ground below. And then, leaving that to dry, I turned to the dwarf's cave for the first round of interior decorating. I began with oil washes. First green and then red for a sort of minerally look, then dark brown for the color of earth. Then I finished with a starship grime color to bring all of those other colors together. Next, it was on to the rocks and greenery. I started by spotting the rocks and stone with yellow first and then brown. I followed up with an overbrushing of medium and light grays before soaking everything in green and black washes. I really loved the depth and the mossy look that it added. I also added dry pigments around the tree where the grass wouldn't grow, and green paint where it could. Then, the last thing to do before the greenery was to plant the dwarf's tree with a muddy mixture of glue, paint, and plaster. I then whipped out my 2 green thumbs and braced myself for the oncoming storm of static grass. Now, static grass loves to spread its little wings and fly absolutely everywhere, including the welcoming arms of tree foliage. So I broke out the saran wrap and made the tree a shower cap for the downpour. I began invegetationizing the soil by spreading small clump foliage in random patches. Here I was going for a layer of ground cover that would border the grass and also provide a bed of undergrowth for the bushes that came later. Then I vacuumed up the extra bits before moving on to the static grass. With the grass all down, I finished up the greenery with some bushes and ground texture. I made the bush by the tree using small clump foliage again, a sprinkling of knock leaves, and diluted Mod Podge to seal it up. I also textured the ground at the bottom of the stairs with sand atop a brushed layer of white glue. And finally, for the finishing touches on this subterranean dwarf dwelling, I put together a front door, a dwarf-sized treasure chest, a trusty ladder, and a few other furnishings in keeping with Sierra's original aesthetic.